Hello, and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News channel. Today we're going to do a tier list of cryptos. And this is what I have here. We're going to do a pump tier, like how high can it actually pump in a bull run, and a long-term tier, or the long-term aspects of the crypto. And we're going to just list each coin based on tiers for both these things. Now, these are different tiers because sometimes a long-term tier is not as good as a pump tier and vice versa. For the pump tiers, how high can it actually pump during a bull run? For the long-term tiers, like what's this coin's long-term prospects? And that actually includes its safety value. So we're going to do this for the top 10, 11 coins. We'll do like 12 because we want to include Cardano and Tron. And then we're going to do it for like VeChain, IOTA, and like BAT, because those are some of the coins that we actually like. So let's start with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the index coin. It is about the safest coin there is out there, and it's going to give and it will have long-term growth, at least for the next halving or two. So 4 8 years out, I think Bitcoin will actually be fine. So long-term tier, we're going to have to put Bitcoin here. Because of its safety value, and because there's still decent potential, pretty good potential for growth. The pump tier, however, Bitcoin is not going to go up nearly as much as other coins. But it will be the first coin to go up. And pump tier also includes probability of pump because not every coin is going to pump. So Bitcoin's definitely going to pump first. And Bitcoin has one unique advantage because it usually does pump first. You can actually jump from Bitcoin to another coin. That being said, it is going, of the coins that pump, it's probably going to have one of the smaller ROIs or the smallest ROI, just kind of like last time where Bitcoin pumped 3x during the end of 2017, but XRP went 16x. Ethereum went like a lot more than 3x, and Litecoin went like 10x. So pump tier Bitcoin is at tier 2. So long-term tier A, pump tier B for Bitcoin. So Ethereum. Now, Ethereum is one of the top coins, but it has a special, it has actually a special technique. It has a bunch of ICOs and a bunch of DeFis on it, which can pull the price of Ethereum up extremely, extremely high in a pump. And 169 right now, it's actually much lower than where it was before the end of 2017 pump that year. So pump tier, I have to give Ethereum a solid A because of that, because of all the ICOs and the DeFi projects that will actually pump at the same time as Ethereum, thereby pulling Ethereum up. And the fact that Ethereum's only 169 and the maximum for Ethereum was over $1,300, I think it can pump well over that with the projects it actually has right now. In terms of long-term tier, I do believe Ethereum is one of the best use cases. It is one of the most widely used coins, and it will actually surpass Bitcoin sometime along the line. So Ethereum is a solid A plus in terms of long-term tier. Now let's look at XRP. XRP, I believe, XRP actually has a lot of liquidity. It is listed on most of the major exchanges. However, news really hasn't affected XRP, and when it's pumped, the pump has been a lot more controlled than the other coins, even less so than Bitcoin and Ethereum. But I do believe in a major bull rush, it will probably outpump Bitcoin, but because it doesn't have the ICOs or the DeFi projects, it will actually get outpumped by Ethereum. So XRP for me, and it's also very, very likely to pump because of the partnerships it actually has. So XRP actually falls in B tier when it comes to pump coins. However, XRP has excellent long-term potential. MoneyGram's already using it, and a couple of banks have already signed on board. They seem to be making like a multi-currency CBDC, which they're going to use for some cross-border transactions. XRP will be still needed for the smaller corridors, so it will definitely have potential. I believe if things are pretty successful, it can reach maybe like $20 stable in a decade or so, but that's still like almost 100x where we are now. So long-term tier, and it's fairly safe. It's supported by Ripple as a company, and it's actually already has some adoption. So we're going to have long-term tier. XRP is a solid A. So long-term tier XRP is an A. and pump tier, it's a B. Now, long-term tier also has long-term potential. Now, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP aren't going to get the S tier in terms of long-term potential, even though they're fairly safe, because ROI-wise, they just don't quite have the, in my opinion, they don't have the pump capability or like the long-term capability to as some of the smaller coins actually do. So that is the long-term tier for XRP, solid A, A+. Pump tier XRP is probably B, B+ tier at that. In terms of Bitcoin Cash is probably the closest follower of Bitcoin possible. However, I don't think it's quite as safe, but it actually can grow a lot more. Roger Ver says 1000x. I don't really believe in 1000x. But there's also a lot of animosity around the Bitcoin Cash community. And because it is proof of work and it's not quite Bitcoin, I'm going to give it a solid B+ tier in terms of Bitcoin Cash, in terms of long-term potential. Now, pump tier, it's really hard to say. It was $3,000 last time, but I think that might have just been because it immediately forked. I'm honestly going to put the pump tier in the same tier as Bitcoin. It is like a slightly more volatile version of Bitcoin, but if you look in 2019, Bitcoin actually did slightly outperform it in a bull market. So it's really, really hard, and Bitcoin Cash doesn't have the ICOs or the ICOs or the DeFi projects to actually support pump it like Ethereum does. So I'm gonna have to just put it in B tier in terms of Bitcoin Cash. So next up we have Tether. Actually, no. Next up we have Bitcoin SV. Bitcoin SV is kind of a pump and dump coin. It's basically being held up by like one person right now. There's very low liquidity, and it's basically founded by a guy who's been proven, who two judges have said he's basically lying in court. So doesn't really go very well for the CEO. He has failed to produce any kind of substantial evidence that he is actually Satoshi Nakamoto, which Bitcoin Cash SV, sort of rides on. And aside from that, like a memory problem took down like 40% of the network last year. Plus, they've had more reorgs than either Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash since they've actually forked off. So long-term tier, Bitcoin SV is F tier because it's kind of garbage. In terms of pump tier, Bitcoin SV, I'm actually going to give the A tier when it comes to pumping, because it's a pump and dump coin essentially. And I have to give like Bitcoin SV an extra star in the pump tier because it actually pumps more often, and it pumps very hard even when there's not a bull market. Because essentially you can CoinGeek can essentially deploy an unknown miner in Bitcoin Cash and take up a lot of the hash rate for Bitcoin Cash, sell the Bitcoin Cash, and then float up the SV. So essentially, since you can do that kind of manipulation, you can almost pump at any time. So Bitcoin SV pump tier, I have to go and give it an A in terms of Bitcoin SV pump tier, because it can pump a lot. You can't deny that. It can actually pump a lot. And it's done that twice this year, whereas many of the other coins that I've mentioned haven't really pumped nearly as much and not as often. So Bitcoin SV pump tier, it's A class. So moving on, Tether, it's kind of $1, but it's probably going to stay at $1. Yes, there is the New York case against it, but that hasn't really gone anywhere. So Tether, I'm going to put in D class because there's really no potential for it in terms of it ever being more than $1. Pump class, obviously it's F tier in pump class because it doesn't pump at all. So Tether is D on long-term tier and F in terms of pump tier. Now Litecoin, Litecoin, I don't know if there's more than one person developing it right now. The development funds are really weak, in my opinion. They're talking about like $18,000, $72,000. Fairly small amount for a development fund for any top coin. So long-term tier, even though it has Mimblewimble, and people are just looking at it as kind of a test bed for Bitcoin, long-term tier, we're going to have to go with Tether being, Litecoin being D, because the long-term potential is just not good. In terms of pump tier, we saw it actually go from $20 to $133 because of the halving, but that's because of the halving pump. Litecoin is more volatile than Bitcoin. It can shrug either way very, very easily. And from the movements I've seen, I have to give it a solid B plus tier in terms of pumping. It hasn't gone sky high, and it tends to come down right afterwards, like most coins. So Litecoin gets a B tier. It's more volatile than Bitcoin, but in last year, it didn't outperform Bitcoin, and it can dump very, very easily. So that knocks it down a peg. And that's going to actually get it into B tier. Only one pump the last couple of years, and that was basically because of the halving. And I think a lot of coins will pump that way because of the halving. So Litecoin only gets a B tier for pumping and a D tier for long term. EOS. EOS is a hard one to judge. Like long term tier, this one I'm just going to give it a C. There's not much to judge it on right now, so C is kind of like the default. There is voice, but maybe the mainnet will come out sometime on the EOS public chain. I know they're going to deploy the beta on the private network, but maybe like EOS public chain will actually have the like release version of voice. But I don't really know too much else about EOS. Like not so much. I don't know too much else. But EOS has some bad PR. Dan Larimer is not that well liked in the community in the industry, and I'm not that bullish on EOS altogether, so it gets in C tier. Pump-wise, I actually haven't seen EOS move all that much. And I think like the voice thing, I think that was less than expected for their June announcement, and I think the whole like it's gonna launch beta not on the public chain has gotten some outsiders down on the coin as well. I'm not really sure how high it's gonna pump. I've seen it at $15 before, so I'm gonna assume that it can at least pump up to $15 again for EOS. So I'll give it like a B minus tier in terms of pump. I wanted to put it C tier, but since it's been at $15 before, I think it can at least go that high. But I would actually, of everything in B tier, in terms of pump tier, EOS would be the lowest right now until they prove otherwise. Binance Coin. So Binance Coin's long-term potential. I think it can actually go to hundreds of dollars in the future. And it's a fairly safe coin because BNB coin is supported by the largest exchange in the world, and Binance is constantly expanding. And more than that, every time Binance actually has profits, it uses those profits to buy back some of the coin and then burn it to make the existing coins even more valuable. So Binance coin, BNB is going to be S tier long term because I think there's good enough rewards in the long term to actually justify S tier. There's a lot of safety value because Binance backs it. And in terms of pump, BNB is a solid A plus tier because I'm pretty sure Binance organization kind of like pumps it itself, and it can definitely take advantage of a bull run to pump extremely high. And plus, we saw that incredible pump at the beginning of last year where it went from like $4.50 or something to like $40, and that's without a big Bitcoin surge. So Binance, I'm going to give it a solid A tier in terms of pump tier. Stellar's long-term potential, I'm going to put it down here with Litecoin because no news from Jed. I don't really know what the hell's happening with IBM. Basically, no announcements of new partnerships, and it's been dead silent for more than half a year. And I don't like that when I see a coin. Stellar kind of pumps with XRP, but because it has no news, I think the pump is actually going to be very limited. So I'm going to put XLM down here in C tier in terms of pump tier. Cardano. So Cardano, I want to give Cardano a higher tier list on long-term tier, but because Shelly and Gogwan have actually been delayed several times, and they don't actually have a decentralized, unlike Ethereum, they don't actually have a decentralized product out yet. It's only the staking testnet. So in terms of long-term tier, I can't put it higher than C right now. Now, when Shelly and Gogwan come out, it might move straight up to A tier. But until they come out, I actually have to put it in C tier because I'm still not sure when they're going to come out or if they're going to come out this year. So I definitely have to put it in C tier. Not going to put it lower because the staking is actually working out very well for some people. But Cardano is definitely C tier for now until they get Shelly and Goguan out. Then it will move up. In terms of pump ability, just the fact that Shelly and Goguan could actually come out this year, and if it catches a bull run, it could go really, really high. Cardano's pump tier, I think, is solidly going to be A tier in terms of pumping. Tron, Justin Sun coin, long-term potential. I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack putting Tron above Cardano, but Tron actually does have a decentralized platform out. At least I think it's decentralized. A decentralized platform out, and Justin Sun has actually delivered on some of his promises. Samsung partnership for one, buying DLive, buying BitTorrent, and you can't deny that. So I think it has a better. I would put Tron above Bitcoin Cash in terms of long-term potential, most likely. And pump tier, I know Tron can go 1020x, so it's gonna fit up here in A tier as well. So that is the top 12 coins. So what about Chainlink? So Chainlink, I think long-term potential is either A minus or B plus, A minus or B plus tier. I'm gonna go ahead and put it up here in A tier. It has a partnership with R3, it has a collaboration or partnership with Oracle, as well as some other companies. Pump tier, Chainlink is hard to gauge because I don't really know the size of the market. But the thing is, like, I kind of see Chainlink trading between $2 and $4 just even without a pump, and a 2x could actually be considered a pump. And you can make a lot of money swing trading it, and because of that, you can actually make a lot of money like just swing trading the coin, much more than a lot of these other coins I mentioned, in a much shorter time frame. Otherwise, I would put Chainlink as a B because I'm not as sure, but I will put Chainlink as an A class coin because of that. So the best coin right now, according to these rankings, would actually be BNB so far. So moving away from the top coins, the next one we're going to talk about is IOTA. Now, what makes a good pump coin? What makes a good pump coin? A good pump coin is one that has a lot of partnerships and has some notice, especially from large companies and corporations across from around the world. So a good pump coin, and it's one that honestly doesn't have too many big exchanges listing it, and it's not as liquid as some of the others. And also has, like IOTA's lower supply compared to VeChain or XRP definitely has it. Because there's going to be less resistance. Now, the lack of liquidity is kind of weird because that actually helps a coin when it starts pumping. And because IOTA has many partnerships and it has a lot of partnerships and it has a lot of potential to pump, and there won't be as many people selling. IOTA is the first S tier pump coin and maybe the only S tier pump coin just because of the low supply, the fairly low liquidity compared to other coins, and the fact that it's been rising lately and people are finally seeing the potential of IOTA. Long-term tier, I would actually put, just because, like, long-term tier, like, because it's the same price as XRP and there's a lot lower supply, I think it can go much higher, and IOTA is targeting IoT, which is going to be really huge. So IOTA is the first coin I would put both in S tier, which is funny because I don't actually have any IOTA myself. It is one of the coins that I'm really actively seeking. And if you're Atomic Wallet and you're watching this, please add IOTA to your wallet because I need somewhere to store IOTA besides Trinity. So IOTA gets S in both long-term and pump tier. Now, yes, they're still a couple of years away, and they are moving slower than VeChain in terms of like adoption. But I think they're going to be pretty successful. They kind of operate in different geographic locations, and IOTA has certain technologies that VeChain's really not into. So they might actually take a lot longer, but I think they're going to be really successful. And they're definitely S tier pump because 2.7 billion supply only, fairly illiquid, and a lot of good partnerships. Plus, they finally released a white paper for Coordinate, and if they actually follow that and get Coordinate done, they'll be, out to the races for IOTA. So that is my view on IOTA. The next one we're going to discuss is obviously VeChain. VeChain is solid S tier in terms of long-term tier. It has 80 something billion supply, and that's a lot, but it's less than half a penny right now. So long-term wise, I think the ROI is going to outclass Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, or Chainlink. VeChain has one of the most varied portfolios in terms of projects. You're talking about governments, large corporations, it has investors in PwC, Deloitte, and DNVGL. And DNVGL is using its power and authority and connections to help VeChain adoption. So VeChain is definitely long-term S tier. Now, pump value wise, there are a lot of VT out there. A lot of nodes, there's a lot of VT out there, but it's actually it's actually valued at a very low price. However, there was that security breach, and even though they dumped 700 million coins, I really don't know what happened to the other 400 million, and that might dampen things a little bit when it actually starts to bull run. For that reason alone, I can't give it the S tier, but I can give it the A plus tier. So VeChain pump tier is A plus, probably S if that security breach didn't actually happen, and I don't really know what happened to the 400 million coins. But long-term tier, definitely S tier for VeChain. So I think that's all I have for right now in terms of tier list. Like if you have an opinion or you have a coin that you think is S tier that I haven't mentioned, let me know in the comments, like and subscribe, and click that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.